The following is a hockey podcast out of Vancouver and Surrey, British Columbia. It'll only consist of a lot of puck talk and even more BS, or in actual words, banter and satire. Enjoy, and as always, go Canucks go.
You know what, Trevor? They used to call it a copycat league. You know what they call it now? This one's easy, Trevor. Alley-oop. What do they call it now?
What?
You're an idiot.
What?
You're Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Locked On Canucks. My name is Trevor Beggs, co-host of Locked On Canucks, and also a Canucks writer currently with Daily Hive Vancouver. Before we dive into this episode, we got to thank you for tuning into Locked On Canucks, because it is your Canucks every damn day. And we're not here without you tuning in, and we're also not here without those sponsors, baby. And today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Kyle, the Florida Panthers, in my opinion, were the saddest franchise in the 21st century of the NHL from 2000 up until 2020. But now they're the most impressive franchise in the league. So if a team like Florida can go from the embarrassment of the NHL to a three-time Stanley Cup finalist, and they're not there yet, but they almost are, then the Vancouver Canucks can do it as well. So what's the blueprint for that? How can Florida get there? How did Florida get there? And how can the Canucks emulate that? Let's talk about that in this episode of Locked On Canucks. I wanted to get into another target from Florida who may shake loose this offseason to potentially your Vancouver Canucks. We'll also talk about Abby Canucks and more here on this episode of Locked On Canucks. But before we get to it, let me introduce my co-host, Kyle Bowen. 2 days without talking to you. I missed you, buddy. How you doing?
Yeah, that's because you're a family man. All right? And I didn't even get a happy 4-year anniversary text from you yesterday, man. That's crazy, man. More on that later. Anyway, Trevor, I asked you a question, okay? I said, yo, Trevor, they used to call it a copycat league. And now they're calling it a what? And you couldn't answer that because, I don't know, you hung over or something? It's a copy Panther league. It has to be. It has to be. Because if they go there 3 times in a row, that's one thing. That's one big thing. That's why you'd want to copy them. But just based on the fact that they played so much hockey and they got Matthew Tkachuk and they're just entertaining and they're must watch, you kind of notice too, like they play the game the right way, like the whole way through. They are this is a statement. I feel like the Oilers are close to what the Florida Panthers have, but even the Florida Panthers are better than the Oilers. And what a complete team. What an entertaining team again. They hit, they bang, they score nice goals. That's hockey, baby. And I want to play hockey in the summer, man. I'm jealous. I'm so jealous of the Florida Panthers. I talked about this a couple days ago, but Trevor, man, kick it back to that time where you're 5 and 6 years old, or even 10 and 11 or 12 or 13, and you would have never imagined a world where Florida has more legacy and more history than your favorite team, the Vancouver Canucks.
Well, Kyle, I said it off the top, right? And this was an article I did for Nucks Misconduct back in 2019, maybe 2020, where I went through every team in the NHL and ranked them based on sadness. I was curious where the Canucks fell in the misery rankings in terms of teams from 2000 onward. And I had the Florida Panthers at number 1 on that list because at the time, they did had a stretch where they made the playoffs like 3 times in 21 years or 22 years and had barely made any noise in the playoffs in the appearances that they did make. They were the epitome of sadness in the NHL. No one in that market cared. They were perennially in the bottom of the league. And it wasn't quite overnight, but over a couple of seasons, Bill Zito transformed that team into the literal laughingstock of the NHL, into a team that's about to make the Stanley Cup Finals for the 3rd year in a row and deserves to be the Cup favorite. And I'm just thinking, man, in terms of drunken Canucks optimism, if the freaking Florida Panthers can do it, the Vancouver Canucks can do it. And there's a couple reasons that they got there. One was, of course, drafting a couple franchise pillars, right? You look at Alexander Barkov, Aaron Ekblad. You could argue that the Canucks, if we believe Pettersson can get back to that level, they have that in Pettersson and Hughes, and that obviously is a huge if. But let's assume that's the case. And from there, they got the number 1 goaltender. The Canucks should have that as well. So really, it's two things that the Canucks would do to get to this Florida Panthers, or to copy this Florida Panthers blueprint, and that is making the shrewd, low-cost bets and hoping that they smack. This team has done that, and they've proven that they can do that with signings like Kiefer Sherwood, Pius Suter. They have to continue doing that. And some way, somehow, they got to find another elite piece. And, the one trade that put Florida over the top, of course, is the Matthew Tkachuk trade. Now, Kyle, the Canucks aren't getting Matthew Tkachuk, but is there a blueprint and all for them getting, let's say, a top 6 power forward to help in the medium term here?
What type of question is that? How hungover are you, man? We just traded JT Miller. We just had that guy, man. And Trevor, how are we going to get that piece in a similar trade like that when we can't make that trade because the Miller trade should have been that trade? But the Miller trade was Filipino, Victor Mancini, and unrestricted free agent Marcus Pettersson. Right? Because Tkachuk goes to Florida, but Florida has to give up Jonathan Huberdeau, who put up, 110 points, 112 points that season? Yeah, they got ousted in the first round, but he was, elite, but they had to give that guy up to get Tkachuk. Oh, and they gave up Timothy Weegar, too. Is that how you say his name? Timothy? What's his name? McKenzie. I'm watching too much Knicks highlights, okay? I think that, what's that name? What's that guy's name? Timothy Charlemagne? Timothy...
Yeah.
Chamelet?
Timothy Charlemagne the God.
There you go. That guy. He's always on TV. Anyways, they have to give up a lot to get Matthew Tkachuk. The Canucks don't have those pieces. In theory, if the other Matthew Tkachuk was available and the Canucks needed to make a transaction, a generational move like Florida did, they would have to give up it would be like Miller and Aronik if they still had Miller to get Matthew Tkachuk, right? And it's hard to do, but I'm trying to keep it positive. Maybe it's one more season of just hitting grand slams in free agency, man. Like bang for your buck. You raise the floor so much so, and you hope Pettersson turns into Aaron Donald, and maybe in December or January you can make a swing, right? Like a Mikko Rantanen type of trade. But I feel like the only thing they can control right now is doing more. And I don't know who those guys are, the next Sherwoods and the Suters, but let's start there because they're gonna lose Suter, maybe, So they got to make sure anyone they bring in is a grand slam.
Yeah, 100%. And you look at some of the moves that Bill Zito made, right? What the Tkachuk one was obviously the big one that set them over the top, and of course that was Huberdeau and Montour were the big pieces of that package. Landing. Sam Reinhart for Buffalo was another big one, right? You sent a good prospect goalie, Devin Levi, as he Archer Shilovs in a first for a guy like Sam Reinhart, who, at the time was underperforming in Buffalo, kind of a 50, 60 point guy, and then busted out. You could find a guy like that out there on this year's trade market if they're willing to trade Shilovs and a first round pick, which, Kyle, we talked about it before. Archer Shilovs, especially with the way he's playing in Abbotsford right now, you don't want to lose him, but with Lankinen and Demko, if they are both here long term, you say that Shilovs is expendable. I mean, solely based on the fact that he is waiver eligible this season. The Sam Bennett trade, we've talked about that before too. I mean, can you find the next Sam Bennett out there? It'd be a risky move, but there are a couple options like that, right? Guys who are 23, 24, who are maybe underperforming, who could use a change of scenery. Mm-hmm. So again, the Matthew Tkachuk one, that's the hardest one to make. And Kyle, like you said, it would have had to been like a Miller and Hronek for a player like Matthew Tkachuk's caliber. And, off the top of my head, a player out there like that who, not to say he's available, but a guy like Tage Thompson would kind of fit that mold as a Matthew Tkachuk type if the Canucks were able to piece together the assets. But you're likely looking at trading Pettersson in that case, which is probably not what this organization wants to do. But Kyle, like I said, it starts with trying to find those low-cost guys in free agency. Obviously, the Panthers killed on the waiver wire as well, getting a guy like Gustav Forsling. But we talked about it. Maybe we'll touch on this guy quick. But Victor Mancini, man, Valentino Martini. I was getting drunk off this guy watching some Abbey Canucks games, and we talked about in the Substack. Go check out that. The link for that in the bio. Kyle and I writing together. But maybe Victor Mancini can be a Gustav Forsling type or have that kind of impact with your Vancouver Canucks here in the near term.
Yeah, and to I don't want to say one up that point, but what if he again becomes a grand slam? What if DPD is actually a grand slam too? And now you got other pieces to trade, legitimate athletic, potential top 4 defenseman that you can move in a trade. And, we brought up Mackenzie Weegar like not too long ago. And again, he was, again, you trade Huberdeau, but don't get me wrong. Like Weegar was a huge piece for Calgary to get for Tkachuk. Like he's a damn good player. And Tree Living knew that when he made that trade. It wasn't easy to get Weegar out of Florida unless you were giving them Matthew Tkachuk, like a damn good player. But this guy was a 7th round pick way back when. So you're looking at DPD and Valentino Mancini III. If they play like again, legitimate top 4 guys and not like the safe top 4 guys, both guys have like athleticism, you know what I'm saying? Like some of that it factor in them. Like if they actually reach, then yeah, you're talking about more pieces, not only for use for this team, but like as an asset to go get just better players in your top 6. And that's the most concerning part. Like it's crazy, right, Trevor? Again, like people are gonna hate bringing this up all the time, but it's like the piece you're missing, and we kind of knew this was gonna happen. The piece you're missing is like a damn good JT Miller. Because you can bring up the whole like, oh, Tage Thompson, blah blah blah, whatever, right? But there's a difference between Tage Thompson and Matthew Tkachuk, and Matthew Tkachuk is just more of a winning hockey player.
Yeah. I completely agree. He's got the it factor, obviously, right? And again, I think there's a path for the Canucks to emulate some of what Florida's done. But Kyle, if we're being realistic here, to your point, the Vancouver Canucks really could have put themselves in a situation to make a bold move this offseason if they got more for JT Miller, if they even hung on to the 1st round pick from that trade, if they sold off Besser and Suter at the deadline for assets. Then
if they waited for Marcus Pettersson, if they just waited for Marcus Pettersson. Like maybe there's a bit for
Marcus Pettersson.
Exactly. Here's the thing: if Mitch Marner could become a UFA, right? Obviously, Marcus Pettersson could become a UFA too. Okay, we could have got him for free. All in all, though, Trevor, again, I'm trying to keep it positive. I do want to talk about one more thing in relation to the Florida and the Canucks and why you never know. We could be the next Florida Panthers. Okay, who would win in a fight, an orca whale or a panther? Exactly, Trevor. Straight up, I read mythology. Okay. Anyways, I want to touch on that one more point after the break, and then we can, I don't know, just focus on real life. Because how did we lose to the Florida Panthers, man? I can't believe it, bro. Like I said this on Saturday too, right, Trevor? I'm telling you, I swear to you, I quit everything. I'm not talking about this show, this friendship, being a Canucks fan, but I most likely am quitting if Utah wins the Stanley Cup before us. Because I'm not, no, bro, you laughing, but I'm telling you the truth, bro.
Yeah, let's hope that's not the case. All right, it could be a sad thing being a Canucks fan, but hey, Kyle, at least the Panthers are going to beat the Oilers again in the Cup Finals, right, Ashneil? All right, let's talk more brainstorming about how the Canucks can be the Panthers on the other side. And I want to highlight one guy from the Florida Panthers who could shake loose this offseason via trade. That's coming up next here on Locked On Canucks. Before we get back to the program, let's shout out our friends over at Monarch Money. Do you ever check your bank account and wonder, where the hell did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, Paw Patrol subscriptions, man, oh man, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in handy. It's your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building your wealth. And this comes from experience, but I know that managing money with your partner is smoother than ever on Monarch Money. My wifey and I, we got the app, and now we can track our shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. So Monarch Money, thank you for helping me out in the bedroom. I even last 50 seconds longer now, thanks to Monarch Money. Wait, what? What do you guys say, Kyle?
No, I agree with you there. Like, I just didn't even think about that, and I don't know, man. Less stress, more. I'm not going to say the word, but you know what I'm saying, bro. Yep.
You know what they say, man, less stress helps with premature. Wait, what? Okay, take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off of your first year, baby.
Boom, bam. People, we back doing this, and that's talking about your Vancouver Canucks. My name is Kyle Bowen. That right there is Trevor Beggs. Okay, second best dad in the world. And Trevor, again, man, 4-year anniversary for me and my girlfriend, and you did not even. I was expecting a nice phone call, man, because people are about to be in on a little secret here. Okay, the first person I told about. No, that's a lie. The fourth person I told about told that, I had a girlfriend, was Trevor Beggs, man. And why I did was because I needed your advice, man. Because I know you're a lover, man. I know you're Mr. Romantic. I know you're Prince Charming. I know you're the king. I know, they named Valentine's Day after you, right? Big Daddy. I didn't say it. Anyways, Trevor, disappointed, man. Because again, we're not.
Kyle, I just want to let you know that I'm actually married, and I also did not get a congratulatory call for my anniversary with my wife. Kyle, do you even know how long I've been married for, man? Come on.
Of course I do, man. Come on, man. It's 6 years.
Good job, buddy.
6 years. Trevor, you see that, Trevor? Come on, man. Anyways, okay, the Canucks can also become the Florida Panthers because they may have good goaltending, and as sporadic and as random as it is, and like look at this correlation. I mean, like Florida not that long ago, to me, was like really regretting the Bobrovsky signing. A, because it was long and expensive, but also because like there was a little bit of like, well, I would say like a long period of time that his numbers were a little concerning. It's like, oh, what, Bobrovsky, and then they had Spencer Knight too, and it was confusing. But dude, Bobrovsky came back and he stepped up, and I know he didn't suffer through like catastrophic injury after injury after injury, but now he's back to being one of the best goalies in the league. And we don't have Demko-ovsky, but we have Demko. Right, yeah. Trevor?
And Demko is a huge part of the equation here, man. Yeah. Honestly, you look at a guy like Thatcher Demko, and he's got that Vezina-like potential. And because of Thatcher Demko, you can believe that the Canucks can do something if he's healthy. And I think Kevin Lankinen's a great 1B option as well. But again, I think when I look at the Vancouver Canucks, and it really is about trying to unearth guys who may be falling out of favor in other organizations, right? Because I think they're pretty good at making the low-cost bets, right? Like, look at, again, like I said, Sherwood, Suter. Josh was a guy we haven't really mentioned. Obviously, injuries and cancer caught up to him last year and affected his season, but he's a guy that you still believe in as well. But I'm even looking at the restricted free agents and trade options this offseason, and like a guy like Marco Rossi with the Minnesota Wild, like, seems to be falling out of favor there. The Canucks need help at center ice.
Yeah,
I'll tease it right now. I mean, he's on my sheet in terms of offer sheet candidates for the Canucks, or even potentially a trade candidate as well. But it may not be Rossi, but a guy like that, a young player with skill. I mean, I know you're rolling your eyes at me, man. I think Marco Rossi is an excellent player. I think Minnesota would be crazy to let him go.
And can you send me the mixtape? I just want to see him forecheck. Yeah, I shouldn't be talking shit because I need to see this guy forecheck. No, honestly, bro, I need to see him forecheck. Right? We have to. They need to forechecking needs to be like the new thing, bro. If I have a kid, I want him to be the best forechecker in the world, yo. I want him sprinting all the time. Track and field, dude. I'm not coming to your events if you're running the 1500 meter relay. Like, you better be running the 100-yard dash, bro. At the Canucks' next move, I know they have so much work to do, and the skill and the offense is so needed, and you got to win in the regular season and get in the playoffs and blah blah blah. But it's just so critical to make sure they get like a culture guy too, like someone that's like built for the playoffs. And yeah, I don't know. Just even watching Carolina do their thing too, and like you want to be good and great, and yeah, there's a couple. Like I feel as if the Canucks could bring in a top 6 player like Marco Rossi or whatever, get really good goaltending, and wow, they're good again. They can win around in the playoffs, and boom, bam, and they're looking good and they're looking deep. But could they beat a Vegas or an Oilers? Like, there's a certain like prototype of player. And again, I haven't watched Marco Rossi play again. Can you let me know in the comments? Does this guy forecheck? Does he have a shoulder, Trevor? Does he have a right and left shoulder? Are they working? No, for real. I want those culture guys. Now, Trevor, I also want to mention this too. Yeah, I love this topic, man. Trevor's the smartest guy in the world, man. If the Florida Panthers can do it, the Vancouver Canucks can do it too, man. If we're gonna talk about culture, and this may be like the like underlining reason why Tocchet, Rutherford, and Alvin have been talking so much. What's the word, man? Shit about Pettersson and like how he needs to practice and work out harder and all this stuff and all this stuff and all this stuff. And it's like, it's so important for teams to have a no excuse mentality. No excuse. For real. I remember when Rick Tocchet was a little bit like kind of weird about Pettersson not finishing the season down the stretch, right? Right? Do or die games, right? 3 to 5 points out of a playoff spot, right? Matthew Tkachuk isn't missing those games. He isn't. No, he isn't. And Paul Maurice said it best too. Like when Tkachuk's like, he's like 70% of the guy he is. Like he's still effective because Maurice knows that because Tkachuk's that type of guy because he's a culture guy, like an ultimate leader, right? He knows that if he's in the lineup, like he can't play the same, he can't play at 100% and do all the same things that makes him so great, but he's going to push his body to still be doing something in a positive way. He's just not going to be floating there. Because it's a mental game too. And that going back to like Rossi or whatever play, like it's so important for them to just bring in like a culture guy. And I wonder, Trevor, again, this a little scary too, because I keep bringing up JT Miller, but like, should the Canucks have tried harder? Because the Rangers are desperate too to like make it like Will Cooley, Valentino Martini, Mancini, and a first round pick instead of Filipino.
Yeah, I mean that's you could argue that's the case, right? I mean, a bit of revisionist history, but you know, I still believe in Filipino as a player, but again, the health scares you, right? And you know, Filipino, I think the good news is that he passed concussion protocol. Like if the Canucks were going to make the playoffs, it sounded like he was going to be ready.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to health like that, it's such a wild card, right? You just got to believe that's the case. Now, to your point about Will Cooley, you get a guy instead of Hedl. Cooley's a couple years younger. He's big. He's fast. He's physical. He was one of the bright spots on the Rangers this season. I mean, the Rangers, again, would be crazy to let him go, but you look at the Rangers this offseason, and they got a pretty tough choice to make between K'Andre Miller and Will Cooley. I mean, there's a chance they could afford both of them, but it's going to be tight for them to afford both and fill out their roster. So, like, if they prioritize K'Andre Miller, I still think Will Cooley is a guy that could be offer sheet eligible if the Canucks were really willing to fork out a good amount of cash for him. But you need guys like that for sure. And let's point out one of the comments here, SK93. He's saying next season lineup, Will Cooley, Marco Rossi, and Nikolai Ehlers on the second line next season. I mean, that's a bit of a dream scenario. I'm not sure quite where the Canucks get the cap space for that without moving some guys out. But, you know, at the end of the day, like those are guys, you know, Marco Rossi, I believe, and Nikolai Ehlers was good for the Jets this season in the playoffs. Will Cooley was a beast for the Rangers. I mean, those are the guys you need to add. And again, if Pettersson bounces back, you got Pettersson, Hughes at the top of the lineup. You got Demko if he's healthy. And it's really about kind of filling out the fringes of your team. So again, if the freaking sad sack Florida Panthers can do it, the Vancouver Canucks can do it. I
don't want Nick Ehlers too, man. I just don't want him because he's going to be too expensive. And I just don't know if like, again, this is the only year I watched a lot of playoff hockey, right? A lot of playoff hockey. And I'll admit, you know, watching the Winnipeg Jets play, you know, Ehlers is still good. Like he's still good at carrying the puck. And there's, you know, it's hard to score in the playoffs. It's hard to produce, you know, it's hard to produce. And, you know, you look at the box score and you're like, yo, there's more there. Just watch the games. Like he's a positive player, but at the end of the day, he still only has like 20 points or like 19 points or 21 points in like 45 playoff games or something. It's like, that's scary. That's scary because I think with Florida, again, Florida is going to their third straight cup final, you know, copy Panther league, a copycat league. Like, look at the way they play. Look at the way they win. Look at the way they intimidate. I mean, I'm going to go a step further here because I feel as if there's a chance they'll make 4 straight cup finals. I look at the roster, how it's locked up, like how smart they are, whatever, right? Anyways, I feel as if they're like a generational franchise. The way they play the game, if they keep winning, they're like the Broad Street Bullies. They're changing the game. And it's always been hard to win in the playoffs, but because of what Florida's doing and how they're doing it, I think it's going to be harder to win in the playoffs because they're changing hockey, man. That's how it feels.
Yeah, 100%. And, you know, you got to have that depth throughout your lineup, right? And again, the Canucks, they got that on defense. They really need that help at forward. And Again, you look at 23-24. I think of, the Panthers have to go that third line right now of Anton Lundell, Brad Marchand, and Ito Luostarinen. The Canucks had something similar where they had Bluger, Garland, and Joshua on that third line, right? So it's about acquiring enough forwards, again, making these bets like the Florida Panthers did with Sam Reinhart, like they did with Carter Verhaeghe. Make those bets. Sam Bennett as well. Make those bets, take those risks, and if they work out, then you can push some guys farther down the lineup. And look, the Panthers made some bets as well that didn't work out, right? Like Vinny Hinostroza, Alexander Wenberg were guys that they brought in who they ended up shipping out later. So you're not going to hit on every bet. The Canucks didn't hit on every bet too, like with Danton Heinen, right? So, but again, I think there's a blueprint here for the Vancouver Canucks to do something here. And we've talked about a couple ideas, Kyle. I think we're going to have to talk about some other ideas here in the weeks ahead as the Florida Panthers are still making noise. But let's get to a quick break here. I do want to talk about one Florida Panther who's barely played in the playoffs and how he could be a trade target on the other side. We'll touch very quickly on the Abbotsford Canucks as well. Kyle's the favorite topic, and get some of your comments here on Locked On Canucks.
We back doing this, and that's talking about your Canucks. My name's Kyle Bowen. That right there is Trevor Beggs. This right here is Locked On Canucks. One love to the Don't Do's Art Lab for giving us that West Coast spots and the place to give you this and this and this and this for you and you and you and you. Let's get to the comments written by who? You. NGK saying that Jake DeBrusk is the worst forechecker in the league. NGK, go for a walk, eat a leaf. You ever eat a leaf before? Off the ground? Not off the ground, but off a tree, like a fresh leaf. Trevor, you ever do that?
Yeah, actually, I was doing that on the weekend with my son. I was like, hey, if the Eltons can do it, we can too.
Exactly, Trevor. Sometimes I'll look at my dog, Loki, like he'll be eating some grass, and I'm like, yo, dude, I'm going to try this out. Yo, cleanse your body, man. Because based on experience, and again, I'm being positive today, but I think I'm telling the truth here. I feel as if Jake DeBrusk, who did admit, he didn't have the best offseason because there's a lot of moving around and whatnot, and he didn't get to prepare the right way. Part of me also feels like the guy who got a career high in goals was saving a lot of juice for the playoffs because he knows what it takes, right? He's always in the playoffs. He's made it deep in the playoffs. He's won a couple rounds here and there. Boston always made the playoffs. And, we talk about like the if factor and like needing to win. Dude, I'd much rather have Jake DeBrusk in a playoff game than Nikolai Ehlers. Because I believe it. I've seen the film him playing the playoffs, and he converts to like he was saving his juice for the playoffs. He was.
I mean, that's great and all in theory, but like when it comes to Jake DeBrusk, I'm going to give NGK some kudos here this season because the Canucks were playing for their playoff lives down the stretch, and Jake DeBrusk still wasn't really forechecking or still wasn't that evident. Like if you have that juice in you that you showed in the playoffs where you can be physical, where you can forecheck, where you can be a difference maker, where the hell was that where the Canucks were fighting for their playoff lives down the stretch? So, Jake DeBrusk was one of those guys where, again, he leads the team in goals. Shout out to me. That was my prediction heading into the season. But you would have liked to see way more consistency from him. There's far too many nights where he was a passenger. And look, I know he's only making $5.5 million. I've seen somebody in the comments, shout out to Dan Jardine, say I'm being a little too hard on the guy. But again, for the cap hit, he was fine. But just on a shift-to-shift basis, you would have liked to see him be far more consistent.
More than fair enough, Trevor. More than fair enough. And let's get to my Hindu brother, Ash Neal, man. Okay. The Oilers-Panthers rematch is going to be wild, and Thatcher Demko is coming to the Oilers next season. He said that as well somewhere down here. And, you know the deal, Trevor. I'm just trying to be more of a Findu these days. Just, know my roots. And that's why I do read Ash Neal's comments, even though he's I'll say it, a mother pucker, man. Okay, for real. I said the hockey version, okay? He's the Oilers fan. I'm so jealous of the Oilers. I hate the Oilers. Dude, I'm with my girlfriend yesterday, okay? We were chilling in the car. I might be texting and driving. I'm sorry because I'm so petty. I'm so desperate. I'm just allegedly. I'm not doing it. Allegedly. I swear, I promise. Anyways, I'm looking at the score of the Oilers game because for some reason they're playing at 12 o'clock, right? And yeah. I wasn't surprised because based on what I saw in games 1 and game 2, like the Oilers are just way better than them. Can we shut me up, Trevor? Shut me up. I'm sad. I'm sad.
Yeah, well, I agree with that, Neil. I think the Florida Panthers Edmonton Oilers rematch is going to be wild, especially when the Panthers sweep them in 4 games.
Okay.
Shout out to Stuart Skinner.
Yeah. Wait, Trevor, can I say one more thing? Sorry, just to nerd out with you because I'm sorry. And again, you can shut me up because it's going to be talking about the Oilers again. And I just started watching playoff hockey again for the first time in a very long time. Okay, for real. But something is telling me that the Oilers and the Panthers are about to play the best Stanley Cup Finals of all time.
I mean, from a hockey fan's perspective, I hope that's the case. But, man, you wouldn't understand, Kyle, you wouldn't understand. But there's been so many times recently where I've had to explain to casual Canucks fans, why I'm not cheering for the Oilers. Oh, don't you want a Canadian team to win?
God.
It's I've done this more. I've done that more this year than I did last year, to be honest with you.
No way.
Yeah, I've had lots of people ask me, kind of coworkers, clients, casual fans, just oh, why aren't you cheering for the Oilers? Every time I start talking smack.
My girlfriend said that yesterday. Actually, she's like, "Don't you cheer for Canada?" My girlfriend said that, she's cheering for the Oilers, and you know me, I love her so much, love her more than anything in the world, Trevor. So I just kept it calm, cool, collected. But deep down, I was like, I questioned the rest of the okay, what I'm trying to say is this. I questioned she's funny, dude. She's a comedian. I love how funny my girlfriend is.
I love how funny she is too, man. She's especially when she said I was a great dad, she's a true comedian. Yeah, so a couple notes here before we wrap up here on Locked On Canucks. I want to touch on one guy quick, and it is Mackie Samoskevich from the Florida Panthers. Now, I was doing an article for Daily Hive today about Canucks or players that Canucks could offer sheet, and Samoskevich would be a guy who's right up there, although he falls in the Luke Hughes category. He is not offer sheet eligible. But Mackie Samoskevich, he had 15 goals, 31 points in 72 games this season. A little undersized, but he throws the body around. He was 5th among Panthers forwards in hits this season. He's a guy who I believe with an increased opportunity could be a top 6 forward. I mean, he's a first-round draft pick from 2021. He's only 22 years old. The Florida Panthers this offseason, they got Aaron Ekblad and Sam Bennett as a big key free agents, right? They're going to be hard-pressed to re-sign one of them and fill out their roster, never mind both. If those guys do become, the main targets of the Panthers, which would make sense, a guy like Samoskevich could fall loose because does he want to re-sign with the Panthers, a team where he might not even play, or could he be a trade candidate where the Panthers could recoup some futures because they have, no draft picks and no prospects. They have the worst prospect pool in the NHL. So I look at Samoskevich as a guy who, if you could maybe trade a 2nd-round pick for him, would certainly be a guy I'd be interested in if I was the Vancouver Canucks or another hockey team. Again, played 72 games for the Panthers this season. He's only played in 4 of their playoff games so far.
Could be. Like I said, I just started watching hockey outside of Vancouver Canucks games this spring as a full-time job, and because that guy hasn't played a lot, I just haven't noticed him, and I'm still in love with the Florida Panthers. Straight up. So on one end, I'm like, oh, why isn't he playing? Isn't that a red flag? And then I'm like, Florida's just really good.
Yeah, they're stacked, man. They're stacked.
But you know what? But they're stacked. But I feel like who's the guy who scored yesterday? No, not yesterday. 2 days ago. Was it Boquist?
Yeah.
Right. So Reinhart gets out of the lineup, and they bring that guy, and they don't bring what's his name?
Samoskevich.
Sharapovich.
Yeah, Maria Sharapova. That's the guy right there. No, Boquist has been really good for them too, right? Just another great depth addition. And Boquist had a great season, much like Samoskevich did it in a lesser role. So, look, I still think Samoskevich, I'm bullish on him. I think he could have that Verhaeghe-like impact, if you acquire that guy. He's not offer sheet eligible, so you'd have to actually trade an asset to get him to the Vancouver Canucks. Okay. Now, quickly before we get out of here, Abby Canucks, they're on the line tonight, Game 5 against the Colorado Eagles. Abby was up 2-1 in the series. Of course, the Colorado Eagles won Game 4 on Friday. Jason Magna with the game-winning goal.
What?
Yep.
Yo, why you gotta bring him up?
Still haunting the Vancouver Canucks a decade later.
How are we in the same place right now without Jason Magna?
Okay, I wouldn't say it's quite as dark as 2016-17, Kyle. That's you've now officially become the dark. Okay, I know I can't say that on air. It's 2025.
Crazy.
But Abby Canucks, their season on the line tonight. Go Abbotsford, go, and let's keep the run going. And again, Valentino Martinez, he's been damn impressive. Jonathan Lecker-Mackey, he stepped up this series as well too. I'd like to see a bit more from R.C. Baines. Maybe he's a guy tonight that can tilt the game in the Abbotsford Canucks direction here.
Yeah, or Archer Shelovs can raise his trade value. And I want to end it on this note, Trevor, because I just want you to motivate the people. Just make some sense of what I'm saying. I'm going to bring up his name again, and boom, bam. Okay, so Shelovs is killing it. Boom, bam. Some people thinking Demko is still available via trade this offseason, right? Some people brought up Philadelphia, maybe still treating him with a lot of value and taking a chance, right? But Shelov's doing well, and shipping him out has to be more of a priority, because a part of me believes the organization still thinks Demko could be that grand slam, could be that X factor, could bring in that playoff revenue. And again, if Bobrovsky can do it, Thatcher Demko can do it too. Now, Bobrovsky, Hall of Fame goaltender, like even outside of his recent success, like maybe he wouldn't be Hall of Fame status because you need the cup wins and whatnot, but he's a Vezina winner already. Demko doesn't have a Vezina, right? So but I'm just saying, like, great goaltending and having Lankinen being there to support him. Like we talk about needing so much from Hughes and Pettersson, right? That's your 1-2, especially now that JT's gone. There's still a 1-2-3 here potentially. Like Pettersson, Hughes, and Demko playing really, really good. Really, really good. Creates a problem for other teams across the league. And that's why, a lot is still possible here.
Yeah, we've heard, Connor Garland referred to this in a recent interview, and we've heard it from Canucks management. Like, this team could have one of the best goaltending duos in the NHL if Demko comes back to form and remains healthy. And I'm still a big believer in Thatcher Demko. I really believe in Kevin Lankinen as long as he can limit his starts. Like, that is a massive X factor with the Vancouver Canucks. And with good goaltending, Kyle, anything
comes great responsibility. That's what you meant to say, man. Spider-Man. Okay, Trevor. That's it, man. I'm gonna go for a walk and think about my girlfriend, man. 4-year anniversary. Yeah, man. That's what it is, bro. You still haven't said congratulations. I don't know why the hell we have to wait 37 minutes. I know you're married, and I'm not in a marriage, but love is love, Trevor. You don't gotta brag about your love and make it seem more important than mine, Trevor.
Yeah, I've only been together with my girl 3 times as long as you, but you're right. Love doesn't matter at the end of the day. Anyways, that was another episode of Locked On Canucks. If you like what we're doing, help out the show, okay? Help me keep my wife happy. Help Kyle keep his girlfriend happy for at least another 4 years by subscribing and liking the show on the podcast side. Go follow us. Leave a 5-star review. Kyle and I have been writing, so go check out the Substack coming out a couple times a week. Link for that in the bio. Go join the Discord as well. Talk hockey with the Canuck fans. The best Canuck fans in the world while you're on the toilet, okay? It's the best place to talk hockey. And we'll be back tomorrow here with another episode of Locked On Canucks. I'm Trevor Beggs. That sexy beast is Kyle Bowen, and you've been listening to Locked On Canucks.
You're Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.